A few teams clinched playoffs last weekend, which was yesterday, and a few more teams have to be clinched this weekend in the NFL. Week 18, last week of the regular season. I'm ready. Who else is ready? Bring on the games. Scheduling conflicts are coming out today, so we'll see what happens. All this plus much more will be talked about on Austin's Academy of Sports. So, let's dive in. The Lions rout the Bears to stay in the postseason hunt. They were the 7th seed for about 3 hours because the Seahawks game and the Jets game was after the Lions game concluded. So, of course, that game was a big implication there for the Lions to make the playoffs. And that didn't go well for the Lions because the Seahawks ended up stomping the Jets, which I will talk about a little later in the show. They stomped the Jets, like I said. The Lions stomped the Bears, which was expected. You know, it wasn't expected for the Jets to lose to the Seahawks. It was expected for the Jets to beat the Seahawks with Mike White coming back. But they just couldn't get it done on the road, and it kind of made me mad because that is a huge game. That was a huge game. If the Seahawks would have lost, then we would have stayed at the 7th seed, and the Packers would have moved up to the 8th seed as a Lions fan. So that kind of makes me mad there. But we'll see what happens this week. Still waiting to come out with the schedules. That'll be coming out today. Well, Monday. Depends on when you watch this video. And, you know, back to the Lions game. That was a great game. James Houston and Aiden Hutchinson, wow. What studs on the defensive end. Pass rushers, they're excellent at pass rushing. They're solid at defense, or run defense, but not the greatest. Just the whole team overall is not the greatest at run defense. That's what happened. That's what caused the loss last game against the Panthers. But anyways, different story. Just Brad Holmes, the GM of the Lions, masterclass of a draft last year with James Houston from Jackson State. Not even a D1 college, really, and scouted him out like that. And then Aiden Hutchinson, the first pick in the draft, which great guy. I have his jersey, great guy. He's going to be a stud for the Lions as long as they don't trade him, which I don't believe they will. So, got a big game this week against the Packers, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. So, the next game, the Chiefs survive the Broncos. I can't believe I said survive there. The Broncos, after their disappointing season, maybe firing Nathaniel Hackett, their head coach, worked out a week ago, and maybe it did work out, and they played a little better on the road against KC. But in the end, KC got the win. Patrick Mahomes, he's chasing for 4,000 yards, I believe, in the air. And he'll probably get it with one more game left. So we'll see what happens there. And it's also, that was a race for the 1 seed in the AFC with the Bills and Bengals playing tonight. The three-way race for the 1 seed as they all got one game left. And who gets the 1 seed determines who wins, who loses, stuff like that. And yeah, the Patriots beat the Dolphins in a playoff scenario game, I can say. The Patriots are looking like they're going to be in the playoffs as the 7th seed in the AFC. The Dolphins are looking like they're going to lose out because of Tua's concussion protocols, and throughout the season they've had a disaster with his season. And Teddy Bridgewater came in as the backup quarterback. So we'll see what happens there, but I don't think the Dolphins will make the playoffs. I think it'll be either the Steelers or the Patriots as the 7th seed, which I will also get to my standings a little later. The Giants clinched the 6th seed with a win against the Colts at home. The New York Giants, they haven't made the playoffs since 2016. That legendary boat pick, that was a mistake of a pick by then. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up the Giants 2016 boat pick. It'll come up on Google. Excuse me. See what happens there. They did clinch the 6th seed, so there's only 1 seed left to clinch in the NFC, and hopefully it will be the Lions. But I'm thinking it will be the Packers, unfortunately. You know, they slaughtered the Colts at home. Nick Foles, they need to find a quarterback, though. Nick Foles is not the answer for the Colts, and neither is Matt Ryan. I think they draft a quarterback with their first pick in the draft this year, and get a quarterback, start fresh, see what happens with the quarterback, because there's tons of quarterbacks this year that are studs that won't be off the board. Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, people like that. So they get the 6th seed. The Buccaneers clinch the South with a win over the Panthers. I'm kind of mad about that because if the Buccaneers can beat the Panthers, the Lions can beat the Panthers, and that's can't be said because the Lions didn't beat the Panthers last week, and we could have been in the playoffs last week. That's a long story there. The Bucs clinched the South in a terrible division, and the Bucs are the same record as the Lions, but the Lions are not in the playoffs. The Bucs are. So you see where that kind of levels out there. It's just because their division sucks. Excuse me. Tampa Bay, or Tom Brady, to Mike Evans, 3 touchdowns. That was a fire connection there. But if you want to watch those 3 touchdowns, just type in Tom Brady to Mike Evans. First three touchdowns of the game, right to Mike Evans in the end zone. So that was a great connection there in that game. The Browns eliminate the Commanders, which was happy for me because Commanders, they were in the 7th seed, and then the Lions were in the 7th seed, and then now the Seahawks are in the 7th seed. So it's kind of a little bit of shuffling there. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks are in the playoffs right now. But that means nothing because they're still fighting for it this week. But happily, because the Browns and Deshaun Watson eliminate the Commanders. The Seahawks maintain the 7th seed with win over the Jets. Bad game for me. I was at work that day watching the game, and it was a rough scene. I wanted the Jets to eliminate the Seahawks because the Seahawks beat the Lions earlier in the season. They hold the head-to-head advantage for playoffs. So we need them to lose to the Rams this Sunday and the Lions to beat the Packers this Sunday for the Lions to make the playoffs. And that's going to be a very tall task. They're only giving us a 19% chance of making the playoffs. I don't think it'll happen, but an improvement to the season after last year, which was a terrible season. So they're expecting next year the Lions to compete for the NFC North next year, and I think they can. They're a stud of a team. Defense is stepping up a little bit with the draft. I think the Lions get a few defensive players, and maybe Anthony Richardson help them develop. But we'll see what happens there in a few months. And then, of course, the Packers stay in the hunt with a home win over the Vikings to set up maybe a Sunday night football game with the Lions. See what happens tonight with the schedule. And then, of course, the Bills play the Bengals tonight and should be a high offensive outburst. Defense will probably be non-existent, as the fans will want to see a lot of offense tonight. Monday Night Football, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman on the call. Should be a good game. I'll be tuned in, beer in my hand. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, the most important games this weekend are probably the Ravens at the Bengals after the Ravens lost last night in Sunday Night Football to the Steelers. The Bengals, they have a match tonight. The AFC North is up for grabs if the Bengals lose tonight and the Ravens lost. So that's an impactful game there. Of course, the Lions at Packers and Lambeau. Tough for the Lions to get it done in the chilly climate of Lambeau, Green Bay. I think they can get it done with their offense, but their defense has to step up big against Aaron Rodgers. Even with injuries, they got to step up. And then, of course, the Rams at the Seahawks. If the Rams lose, of course, it's good for draft position for the Lions, but if the Rams win, then it's good for Lions' playoff hopes. So it's kind of a 50-50 there. And then Titans and Jaguars, the AFC South, that game, whoever wins that game wins the AFC South and hosts a playoff game. Is it either Jacksonville or is it either Tennessee? I think Jacksonville wins it because Tennessee is dealing with an injury bug right now. Ton of their starters on IR, which is kind of sad. But all teams deal with that. The Lions dealt with it early, mid-season, and now they're getting healthy, so you got to deal with it. So we'll see what happens there. Jacksonville is favored, so see what happens. And so the current playoff picture as of now in the AFC, it goes 1 through 7. Let's go Kansas City at 1, Buffalo at 2, Cincinnati at 3, Jacksonville at 4, Los Angeles Chargers at 5, Baltimore at 6, and New England at 7. And then for the NFC, it's Philly at 1, San Francisco at 2, Minnesota at 3. San Francisco and Minnesota swapped after the Minnesota Vikings loss. Tampa Bay maintains 4th seed. Dallas maintains 5th seed. New York Giants clinched the 6th seed. And Seattle boots the Commanders out of the 7th seed to move up. So my final predictions are, it's kind of the same for the AFC. I think Kansas City survives the gauntlet for the 1 seed. Gets the first round, the double bye. And I think New England gets the 7th seed in the AFC, bumping out Miami. And then Chargers move ahead of Baltimore. And then for the NFC, I think Philly maintains 1 seed. They're slowing up only because their quarterback Jalen Hurts has been injured the past few games. If they get the win this week and the Cowboys lose, then they clinch the East and the number 1 seed. The 49ers will be 2. Vikings will be 3. What a team there. They only win because they could come back or they win on 1-possession games. Tampa Bay will be 4. Dallas will be 5. Giants will be 6, and then I think the Packers will kick the Seahawks out of the 7th seed and become the 7th seed. And for the Super Bowl, I got Buffalo versus San Francisco. San Francisco, they're getting healthier, and Jimmy Garoppolo might come back and boot Brock Purdy away, but I don't think he needs to. Brock Purdy's been balling 4-0 as a starter, as a rookie QB. Drafted in the 7th round, I may add. So that's my Super Bowl prediction, Buffalo winning it all. And then for the important games, like I said, go Lions this weekend. Root for my team and the Rams, of course. As always, thanks for watching. Austin signing off.